Hey everybody, welcome. It's Tuesday. It's bracket day, and Amadeus has had about 45 minutes of sleep in the last 3 days. So we will get here and we're going to go. Now, if you want to follow along there, I put the link to the bracket that we're using, which is our buddies at CBS with the NCAA. And you can follow along and we'll just get ready there. Amadeus, there's a lot of interesting and tantalizing little games in here. There's potential for upsets, but I don't know. We'll see. We'll have to see. That's why they play the game. So let's start off in the first round in the East region, and it's UConn, obviously the number 1 seed, against Stetson. That shouldn't be too much of a fight.
Yeah, definitely. Stetson was a team. I really liked them in the Atlantic Sun this year. They had a great season, but yeah, come on, it's UConn. They won the regular season in the Big East. They won the Big East tournament. They're on a rampage, and you got to remember they're still the defending champions. So I don't see them exiting a first round here. Definitely not.
There you go. And next on the list we got FAU. And FAU and Northwestern, I'm going to say this out loud, don't care. Neither of these. I just don't see it. You lost, a couple of times to teams that their own conference. So FAU and Northwestern, please. I mean, the Big Ten got a ton more bids than they deserve, please. But we have to probably FAU. I don't know. I mean, Northwestern isn't particularly athletic. I think FAU is athletic enough to get by them. So, what say you? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I lean more to Northwestern here. FAU's not FAU's not a team that's really impressed me this year. Obviously,
right. Sure.
They went to the Final Four last year, and they have pretty much the same team that went to the Final Four. So maybe that experience comes into play. But Northwestern, they've been a scrappy team all year. They did beat Purdue earlier this season at home, so they have some quality wins under their belt. And like you mentioned with FAU, they had some bad losses this year. Earlier this season, they had a loss at home to Bryant. Bryant is not a good team at all. They should never be losing that game. Obviously, we saw FAU, once South Florida went out, the tournament was theirs to win. And sure enough, they get beat by Temple of all teams. And so they definitely, not a team that's impressed me at all this year, and I think Northwestern has the chops to beat them.
You brought up a very good point. FAU lost to Temple. Okay, how much worse of a loss can you have? I mean, and look, I'm actually wearing a Temple shirt as we speak. Temple didn't have a winning record, number one. Number two, their NET was off the charts. I mean, it was that bad. Evidently, don't worry about the NET whenever you're in a conference tournament. I mean, it's nuts. It's absolutely nuts. The next one is San Diego State and Birmingham. Man, Birmingham plays a physical game. I mean, literally, they play tackle basketball. There hasn't been a UAB game this season where there has not been a team total. We're talking about the two teams in the game, less than 50 fouls.
Yeah, I believe it, because I was actually going to mention every UAB game I've watched has been an all-star performance from the referee. They just love to absolutely blow the whistle at every chance they get. And frankly, I don't trust any UAB games at all, because there's been a lot of fishy things going on. a lot towards the end of the season. I watched a game. They were up by 20 on Memphis, and 5 minutes into the second half, they were down. They blew a 20-point lead and were losing by 10 points pretty much, and proceeded to lose by 20. So just things like that don't happen normally. This UAB team, just their games in general, I'm very weary of. But if I got to pick a side here, I'm going to go with San Diego State. They got the experience from last year's Final Four, and they made a pretty good run. I know they didn't win the Mountain West tournament, but they made a good enough run in it. So I think they got a better chance here than.
Well, to your point, San Diego State, any team for that matter, but especially if you make it to the Final Four, you've got a feel for what it's like to be at a tournament now. And San Diego State has been to tournaments, but they hadn't been to the Final Four. And so they know what the bright lights are. They know how to handle it. And, UAB won. The reason they're there is they won the American Conference Championship. So I'm not throwing shade at UAB. They're just not in the same category as San Diego State.
Yeah, well, they're a bid thief. You have to take that into account too. You have to look at it like that. It's not shade. It's just facts. They stole a bid, and you have to consider that. Some of these teams like Duquesne, NC State, you have to consider the fact that this wasn't a team that was going to make the tournament. Right. They got in because, yes, they won their conference. But then how much energy did you exhaust? NC State, for example, they won 5 straight games in 5 days. That's going to take a toll. Maybe it didn't catch up to them in the ACC tournament, but it's got to catch up to them now that they've done some more traveling. They've had that day off to rest. And then, now you're on the plane and you got to get right back into the rhythm again. It actually hurts more to take that day off after playing the 5 straight.
Right. It's it's one of those things where you're hoping that the legs are there.
Yeah, so I just think the bid thieves are something you definitely have to look at.
100%. Absolutely. Auburn and Yale is the 4-13 thing. Yale could beat Auburn. I'm going to say it straight up. They're very disciplined. They are big. They got a 7 foot and 6'9" front court, which is just, they're beasts. And, Auburn has had its moments. Auburn won the SEC championship tournament this past weekend. So they are the SEC's auto in this, and they got a 4 seed. But if you're looking for an upset, this might be it.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. It could happen. I don't think it's going to myself personally. I think Auburn is a very good team. But I will say I'm disappointed Yale has to play Auburn in the first round because I totally agree with you. Yale's a very good team. I think they could have made a deeper run if they didn't have to get such a strong team in the first round. But, it definitely could happen. I wouldn't count it out. I just think Auburn is very solid. Auburn's got to be playing a bit with a chip on their shoulder too, because out of all the teams in the SEC this year, they never really got talked about. It was always, streaky Kentucky and Tennessee is the team to beat, and then South Carolina came out of nowhere. So what little recognition, Auburn would have went to South Carolina because it's like, oh my God, all of a sudden, they're this dark horse out of nowhere. So Auburn really, to me, as good as they've been, has been kind of a team that's flown under the radar in that conference specifically. And if you look, they won the SEC tournament. And a lot of that probably has to do with the fact, like, let's go show them we are the best in this tournament. So I think Auburn's going to win this game, but I totally agree with you on all your points about Yale. I think Yale is a great team. And I'm sad to see them play Auburn in the first round. Yeah, I mean, had they had a different opponent, I think they have a better chance.
They deserved a higher seed. Yeah. And that's is Auburn going to win? Most likely, yes. But if you feel like you might want to, pencil in somebody for an upset, Yale might not be a bad choice in that regard. We got BYU and the aforementioned Duquesne Dukes. This is a matchup nightmare for BYU. It doesn't mean that BYU is not, going to beat them. It's just that on paper, and if you watch them, Duquesne is an incredibly disciplined basketball team. They have great guard play, and they can play keep away for a while, which they did all the way through the A10 tournament. So does that mean that BYU is going to lose to them? No, it just means that Duquesne probably is going to be able to keep the score close.
Yeah, definitely. Duquesne had a great conference tournament. Obviously, they made the run to win the entire thing, but they dominated teams in that tournament as well. A lot of those games weren't close, and even in the final there, it was closer at the end, but they really were dominant in that game from the start. All that being said, I do think this is BYU's game to lose. And again, Duquesne's one of those teams where if they don't win the A10 tournament, there's no way that they're in this tournament. It wasn't happening. They had an okay season in the A10. Right. They weren't terrible. But once again, that A10 conference was strong. There was 4 teams ahead of them. And, only Dayton was the other team to make it from that conference, which questionable. But I think, I think Duquesne, I think this is the end of the line for them, but we'll see. They could definitely, as you said, they match up well. And we saw in the A10 tournament that they were playing with a bit of a chip on their shoulder too. So would it shock me if BYU exits here? No, but I see BYU advancing.
Yeah. And just a quick aside, how many people in Pittsburgh would have thought that Duquesne was going to make the tournament and Pitt wasn't?
Yeah.
Just saying. So good on the Dukes. All right. Illinois. I mean, Illinois is going to, I firmly believe Illinois advances, but if they hit some of those things, this could be a long day for Illinois.
Yeah, that's going to be the key for Morehead State here is they can really hit the 3-pointers. So I personally think this is one I think Morehead State could pull off the upset in. It really wouldn't shock me. Yes, Illinois is a very good team, but even in the Big Ten
from 3.
Even in the Big Ten tournament, they weren't they weren't dominant. Like how they got past Nebraska beats me because I didn't watch that game, but they were losing big. And when I went back, they were all of a sudden up by 10, and there wasn't too much time left when they were losing. So they made a very good comeback. But
Nebraska
as you said,
No, I was just gonna say Nebraska went really cold in the last 6 minutes of that game. I mean, they couldn't hit water if they were throwing the ball out of a boat. I mean, it's just they couldn't hit anything.
And
that's
like
a problem.
You pointed out with the 3-pointers, if Illinois falls behind in this game, it's going to be tough for them to come back. So
it'll be fun.
Yeah.
All right. Washington State and Drake, 7-10 matchup. Washington State did very well in the final Pac-12, season, and then they bailed out in the tournament. So, it happens. Drake has played really well. I would not be surprised one bit if Drake upset Washington State in this game.
Yeah, I think that's something that we're going to see. Drake, obviously, they made a bit of a run last year. Their downfall was against Miami, and it was a game really that they were dominant for 35 minutes. I would say it was just the last 5 minutes. All of a sudden, Miami clutched up on defense, and Drake blew their lead and ended up losing that game. But Washington State hasn't impressed me in their last few games. They were. They were a team we talked a lot about how they were flying under the radar in the Pac-12, and they had a phenomenal season. But then it was weird. They had that huge upset win over Arizona, and then they went and lost their next game. I think it was to Arizona State or somebody. It was a much weaker
Arizona
team.
State.
Yeah. So it was a much weaker team, and they didn't finish the season strong after that Arizona win. And then they had a chance to redeem themselves in the Pac-12 tournament. But as soon as they went up against a strong opponent, they got kicked out in the semifinals. So they're a team, Drake is very good. They weren't the best in the regular season in that
Right.
conference, but they won the conference tournament and they beat the best team in the final. And yeah, the score says 84-80, but believe you me, they were dominating that game
Wasn't that
until
close?
yeah, until Indiana State all of a sudden, turned the Jets on and decided to come back. But yeah, Drake, along with their experience from last year, wouldn't shock me at all to see them go through here.
Okay, now I'm going to say that's something incredibly stupid, which you normally do on a regular basis. But I say that to say this: Iowa State is playing South Dakota State. Okay, Iowa State's a 2 seed. I honestly think that they're being undervalued at a 2 seed. I mean, they Iowa State might just be the best team in the Big 12 now at this time, even better than Houston.
So it's funny you say that, Jim, because there's a big controversy how UNC got the number 1 seed over Iowa State. People made
I wonder how.
Yeah, people made a lot of good cases that should have went for Iowa State, but I totally agree with you. I don't see them losing. We'll cover this game first. I don't see them losing to South Dakota State, but absolutely on this particular side of the bracket, because obviously this ends this region.
Yeah.
Iowa State could be the team to kick out UConn, because I think out of this entire region, Iowa State's the only team that can do it, and it is a good possibility that they could beat a team like UConn.
I agree. I mean, the stuff that Iowa play, I think they go to the bench almost maybe 11 players. I mean, they have wicked rotations, and they'll just wear. I mean, you're right. I mean, if there's anybody going to challenge UConn coming out of this side, it's got to be Iowa State, and good on them. I mean, the Shockers are not exactly, every year to the NCAA tournament. They're there and they deserve it. So there you go. All right, let's move over to the other bracket, which gives us a matchup, a 5-12 matchup, Wisconsin and James Madison. Bump. Let's see. Wisconsin has played schizophrenic basketball most of the year. James Madison's played very well. I'm a little surprised that James Madison is a 12 seed and not just a little bit lower. It might have been, to me, maybe a 10, but they're at a 12, and they got Wisconsin. Now, normally, 5-12 matchups are where you find the upsets. It wouldn't surprise me that JMU would beat them, but I'm not going to go on the limb and say it. So Wisconsin wins. Again, I think it'll be a close game, but I think Wisconsin. How about you?
Yeah, I'm with you. The 5-12 matchup, as you said, you got to watch out for it. I totally agree. It wouldn't shock me if James Madison got through. And again, it's more so Wisconsin, right? Like, I think it's going to be a matter if Wisconsin doesn't show up, absolutely James Madison could beat them. But, Wisconsin on the right day should win this
100%.
game. And I think they're going to. It's just one of those things. It's Wisconsin's game to lose.
Yeah. They're big, they're physical, they're averaging more points than they have in previous years. But again, they're a hot and cold, streaky team. And you hope, if you're a Wisconsin fan in Badgerland, that, that this is the week they're hot. And if you're a Dukes fan from James Madison, you are cheering for the contrary. So we'll see. It's going to be a typical 5-12 matchup, which means both fan bases are going to be drinking a lot of Pepto-Bismol throughout the entire game, because there's going to be runs where Wisconsin, bolts out to maybe an 8 or 10 point lead, then James Madison closes it, and maybe they go out for a short lead. It's going to be one of those back and forth track meets between these two teams. So it'll be interesting and fun to watch. I think, you got to go with Wisconsin here. All this stuff is point spreads and such. I leave all of that to my esteemed colleague here, But I would think that that's going to be a close game, and you might see the under in this.
Yeah, it definitely could happen. It's not a game I love personally from a betting standpoint, just because, like I
I
said,
wouldn't touch it.
it depends what Wisconsin team's going to show up. I definitely think they're vulnerable to the upset, but it shouldn't happen. But then again, they're in case you're wondering, they're a 5.5-point favorite in this game. So
Wisconsin is.
yeah, so that tells you
That's
a
something.
lot too.
All right, now we move down to a team I have not been able to figure out all season long, and that is the Duke Blue Devils. Sans Coach K. All right. They're taking on Vermont, the Catamounts. Now, a lot of people have overlooked Vermont in the past. I am not saying that Duke will, because Duke is a very well coached, very disciplined team. But those who have overlooked Vermont have done so at their own peril. They are very much a team. There's not a kid on this team at Vermont who's going to be in the NBA next year. Okay. But they played together for 4 years, and in some cases, with some of these kids, 5 years. So all I'm saying is that Vermont is a very team-oriented basketball team that understands how to play fundamental basketball really, really well. Duke is a bunch of world-class athletes on a team. That's the McDonald All-American. We have, I'm going to be able to really get a read on what Duke. I mean, obviously they won a lot of games, but I can't figure out what kind of an identity this team is. Is it a defensive team? Is it an offensive team? Is it a balanced team? I mean, some days yes, some days no. It's just a very weird, un-Duke-like, situation here.
Yeah, and that was it's a big reason why I said I thought North Carolina was the best team in the ACC this season, and really,
well, you said that early on, as a matter of fact.
Yeah, and it had nothing to do with how good North Carolina is. It had to do with how not good the ACC is, and Duke is included in that. And I think we saw, a lot of people thought Duke was going to get him back in that home game at the end of the season. They didn't. They got demolished. They didn't just lose; they got demolished. And a lot of people thought, oh, but Duke will get him in the ACC tournament. And yes, North Carolina didn't win the ACC tournament, but they went to the finals. Duke got eliminated very early on. So it's one of those things where this Duke team, it's been very evident they're just not quite there yet. And it's going to be interesting to me in this game, because I totally agree with you. At this point, Vermont feels like a force in the tournament. They're always there. And maybe that's because they always dominate the conference they're in without much competition. So it always feels like they're definitely in the tournament. But this year specifically, I don't know how good Vermont is in. I didn't love the way they played the non-conference schedule at the beginning of the season. They struggled in a few games at home that they really should have dominated, because at home is where they've been so good the last few years. Obviously, this game's on a neutral site, so that doesn't matter. But it's one of those things where, just like Duke, I don't exactly know how good this Vermont team is. So who am I leaning here? I would say Duke gets through, and, they're an 11.5-point favorite. So I'm pretty sure Duke's going to get through. But would it shock me to see Vermont upset? Absolutely not. Can they cover the 11.5? Absolutely. They could keep this a close game. So I'm very interested to see this particular matchup.
Will they bring maple syrup for everybody? We don't know. These are things that you have to find out. All right. The next one is, this is going to be one of those things where, when these two teams meet at center court to exchange their pleasantries, neither of these teams, I'm pretty sure, thought they were going to be in the NCAA tournament whenever this season started, and probably not even in midseason. But both Texas Tech and NC State got hot, and they benefited from it.
Yeah, and honestly, I don't think either team should be in the NCAA tournament.
Well, I was trying to stay away from that, but you're right.
If we're gonna go there, well, look, NC State, we're gonna call it how it is. They were a bid thief. They had a losing record. I believe they were 9-11 in the ACC.
Yeah.
So not a good record. Maybe they were like the 21-14, but that was after they won 5 straight in the in the ACC tournament. Yeah, right. So they didn't finish the season with a strong record. They were 10th in the ACC. They're so lucky to be there because they had to win 5 straight games. But this is what I was talking about with those teams.
Right.
They exhausted all that energy, and yes, they were able to win 5 straight days, which is tough to do, probably because they played every single day and still had the momentum. But once you take that day off and you relax, and now you get to enjoy your win, and on top of that, you beat one of your rivals, UNC, and then you got to get on a plane and travel and get ready for this game. It's different a lot. Hotel. Right. It's a lot, and I think Texas Tech is gonna get by them because, as you said, they've been getting hot lately. But even then, the way they ended the season, so they've won 4 of their last 5, and their one loss was to Houston in the semifinal. They got destroyed by Houston.
Yeah, it wasn't close.
The way they ended the season, they won on the road in Oklahoma State and West Virginia. So it's not like they beat anybody impressive. Those were games they needed to win to be considered, and they went out there and did it. So good on them. I do think they're the better team in this situation. They should get by NC State, but Texas Tech is another one, lucky to be there from a conference that probably got a little more bids than they should have.
Next up, Kentucky and Oakland. Kentucky's playing pretty decent basketball. They're a 3 seed. Oakland's a 14 seed. I have great respect for the Oakland team. I've seen them play a couple of but it's just you can't take Oakland over Kentucky because Kentucky has just got so many athletes, so many very. That being said, they don't particularly always play like they are as good as they're supposed to be. But I have a feeling that Kentucky's now in the tournament. They'll dial it in and they'll say, "Okay, we know what we're here for. Let's go out and do it." Oakland is just happy to be there. I'm not saying that they want to lose. I'm just saying that they're going to be in awe of the surroundings for the first few minutes of the game, and Kentucky can take full advantage of that to get out to a lead. And for Oakland to pull back Kentucky, if they get out to an early lead, it's going to be tough.
Yeah, it's funny. All that being said, I myself have Oakland penciled in my bracket to get past Kentucky. And, a lot of that has to do with the streakiness of Kentucky. I totally agree with you. Kentucky, the athletes don't even compare. They're the much better team. But have they played like it this season? No, they've been such a streaky team. And even when they were finally getting hot at the end of the season, they fizzled out in the conference tournament. So to Texas A&M, of all teams, it's not like they lost to a team that was ahead of them in the conference. They lost to Texas A&M. So, and Texas A&M is a good team, but they weren't as good as they were supposed to be. They were ranked coming into the season, and they didn't have the great year. They weren't the same team as last season. And frankly, I think if Kentucky has one of their streaky moments here, absolutely, I think Oakland can beat them. Oakland, they were the best team in the Horizon League during the regular season. They won the Horizon League tournament, and even in a game earlier this season, they went and gave Michigan State some trouble. Obviously, Michigan State's a team they play quite often, usually I believe once a year, but they know how to play these big name shiny schools because they play Michigan State every year and they try to schedule in those kind of games in the non-conference schedule. So I'm not saying it's going to happen, but keep an eye on Oakland for an upset here.
Well, and for those of you most of you, I'm sure, know that that's not the Oakland of California. That's the Oakland in the Detroit, Michigan suburbs. So that's the Oakland. And that's why they play Michigan some years, Michigan State some years. And a lot of the kids that are on the Oakland team shouldn't surprise anyone. Are kids that were recruited by Michigan and Michigan State. So they got talent on that team, and we'll see. Next up, the Gators. My Gators. We don't know who they're going to play yet. Doesn't matter. Florida got to the SEC title game, lost to Auburn. Guard play was good for the Gators. The guards kept them in the game the whole time. What would concern me about Florida, I don't know again who they're going to play, is they sometimes take a nap on defense. It's kind of like, I'll catch you next time. So that's, I think that bodes well for them they'll get by the first round. But, in the next round, you got to take on the winner of Marquette and Western Kentucky, two incredibly good teams. We love Shaka Smart at Marquette. Western Kentucky can ball with any, but I don't know. I think Marquette has enough to get by Western Kentucky and probably give Florida a tough time and perhaps even beat Florida. They're a 2 seed, so they're getting respect.
Yeah, Marquette is a very good team, obviously, but the key thing here is they've been without Tyler Kolek for so long. He's supposed to come back at some point in this tournament. It may not be this first game. They probably won't need him as much for Western Kentucky, but absolutely, he could be back for that game against Florida, or maybe if Florida gets upset. But I'm with you. I think Florida gets through no matter who they play. I believe they get tomorrow's match, the winner of tomorrow's
match, right?
They
do.
The Colorado,
because they're playing Friday.
So yeah,
I would guess it's Colorado, to be honest with me, but
yeah, you would think, right? But obviously anything could happen there. Boise State, I talked a lot about how Boise State was more of a home team this year, and it has reflected in the way they played in that tournament. But who knows, right? They finished the season hot.
Sure.
But I'm with you. Colorado probably has more momentum on their side. That being said, I think Florida gets past them, and I think Marquette gets past Western Kentucky. But it definitely is one thing to watch with Marquette is the injury status of Kolek.
Right, and that's a pretty big injury to have. Let's pop over to Carolina. Again, it's penciled. We don't know who they're going to play. It doesn't matter. North Carolina should win the first game in that on that bracket side. Mississippi State, who had a good end to the season, not quite as good as they wanted, but good enough. And this is something that you and I talked, and specifically you, about the Tom Izzo factor, getting a Michigan State team in the tournament who hasn't won 20 games. I don't know how they're there, but they're there. And I'm guessing it's because of Izzo and the reputation of the Spartans. And Lenny, I know you're out there screaming at me, and I get it, but I don't get how Michigan State. I mean, these are two teams that probably shouldn't even be here.
I would agree with that. It's again, Michigan State is obvious. They won the popularity contest with the committee, and so they get their name value in there. Yeah. They didn't have a good season. They were only 10-10 in their conference. They put up a fight against Purdue, yes, but still they didn't go deep enough in the Big Ten tournament to really do anything. Mississippi State, I think the only reason they're in there is because of the run they had in the SEC tournament.
In the tournament,
they beat Tennessee, and they shocked some teams before getting destroyed by Auburn. But they're another one. They were ranked coming into the season, and they went 8-10 in the SEC this year. How can we be putting teams under 500 in their own conference?
This is our bowl eligible part, right?
Yeah, this is my stipulation, where there needs to be a bowl eligibility rule for the NCAA tournament. If you're under 500 in your conference, you don't belong to be there. Because, honestly, why do we play the season games then? They don't mean anything. It's just useless if that's the case, right? Start the tournament in November and include every school then. We'll do one game a week, and we'll have a whole tournament. Because, obviously, the season doesn't matter. The games don't matter. So I think this is a stupid matchup altogether. Neither team belongs to be there. It's a pick 'em anyway, so Vegas doesn't even know who's going to win.
Or care.
Yeah, give me Mississippi State, I guess, because the run they went on in the
Yeah,
in the thing. But who knows, man? I mean, Michigan State, they did it last year where they
yeah,
questionably got into the tournament. I mean, they probably
hmm
deserved more last year to be there, but they
yeah.
weren't they
Then this
weren't a
year,
great Michigan State team. And sure enough, they went on a bit of a run when the lights turned on. So maybe they do the
hmm
same thing here. But yeah, this is
okay,
not two teams I love being in the tournament.
right there you go. It's rare. Okay, it's very rare when you get two mid majors facing each other in the first round. Normally they would be paired off against a power conference team. Not such is the case of St. Mary's and Grand Canyon. And we love the stories of both of these two teams. I mean, they have been, you know, if there is such a thing as a Cinderella story, these two have fit that bill really nice. And St. Mary's could go deep into this tournament. They're a very talented team.
Yeah, this is a fascinating game to me just because again, like same thing with Yale, right? I
Uh-huh.
think both of these teams could have won their game in the first round.
Sure.
But then you go and put them together and someone's got to lose. So
Yeah.
I feel bad for whoever's going to lose this game because I agree with you. I think either team could make a run here. Would it shock me if Grand Canyon pulls an upset? No. Would it shock me if St. Mary's continues to do what they've been doing for most of their regular season? No. So this is a game really I truly believe it could go either way.
I tell you what, let's see if we can call the committee and have Mississippi State take on St. Mary's and Michigan State face Grand Canyon so both of them can move forward.
I'll take that.
There you
I'll
go.
definitely take that. And then we can still get the St. Mary's Grand Canyon later in the bracket.
Right, but one day, a couple days later. All right.
Perfect.
Yeah. Alabama and Charleston. You might never say that you saw the day that Alabama's basketball team is getting more publicity than the football team. They're still trying to figure out who Caleb DeBoer is in Tuscaloosa. So they're playing the College of Charleston. Again, College of Charleston has been here before, and they know what to do, and athletic quality team. Alabama should go deep into this field because of their athleticism. The problem is I don't know that they have the mental part of the game. They make a lot of mistakes.
Yeah, I don't think Charleston's going to be the team to take them
No,
out.
to knock them. No, I agree. 100%.
But I agree that they could get knocked out by St. Mary's or Grand Canyon, whoever they play in the next round. So that's one to watch. I don't see an Alabama upset in the first round, but the second round possibly
could happen. Yeah. All right. Get your tin hats on again, folks. I have no idea how Clemson made this tournament. Please, anybody out there, a Clemson fan, tell me, explain to me how this worked. New Mexico.
Because they have one, I guess, road win against Alabama that came at the beginning of the season, which apparently,
I guess that means everything now.
We weight the beginning of the season so heavily, apparently.
Right. It's like, give me a break. So they got one of our Mountain West teams, New Mexico. Not the good Mountain West team, but they get New Mexico. And, to their credit, New Mexico had that run in the tournament. And, they came out on the other side. So I don't know. I mean, it's a contrast in styles how Clemson plays and New Mexico plays. New Mexico likes tempo. Clemson doesn't. New Mexico got some pretty good athletic. I mean, they got guards. And if you have guards, you got a chance in the tournament. And New Mexico, I think, is the backcourt is their strength. But I don't know. I don't love Clemson in this for some reason.
Yeah, I'm with you, Jim. It's one of those where New Mexico, you could call them a bid thief because they were 10-8 in the conference and probably got lucky because they got hot and won the Mountain West. But they got hot and they beat a lot of good teams in the Mountain West. And I know up until this point, we've been fading those teams that really shouldn't have won their conference tournament.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, I'm with you. I don't think Clemson belongs to be there. I don't think this is truly a tournament team. And so I think New Mexico is the better
Has a
team.
shot.
They're going to win this game.
Yeah. Baylor and Colgate. That's an interesting matchup. I mean, Baylor's a very athletic team, but Baylor's prone to a bunch of mental mistakes. They tend to, I guess I'm going to put it this way. Baylor can beat themselves better than other teams can. I don't understand why they would do it, but they take shots that just defy, logic at the time. They should have enough to beat Colgate, but don't underestimate Colgate. They're a talented team. So, again, they're not as deep as Baylor. They're not as athletically talented as Baylor, but they just keep, plugging away. And, if Baylor, we talked about a couple of games where people have a cold streak of 4, 5, 6 minutes. Don't be surprised if Colgate can keep the game close. Could they win it? Maybe, but I don't think they will. But I'm also not in love with this Baylor team either.
Yeah, I don't think Baylor's great. Definitely not as great as the team we've seen in previous years. But I can't see Colgate beating them. I think Baylor's a lot better. And yeah, like I said, Baylor, they could have some trouble maybe in the next round. But even then, I could see them getting by. It'll probably be, if anything, maybe the third round they'll have real trouble because they have to face Arizona. Arizona's a team that could really take them out. Or if they have to face the winner of Dayton and Nevada somehow makes a run. Those are also two, scrappy teams that could definitely do some damage on Baylor.
You mentioned it. Dayton faces Nevada. These are two teams that kind of mirror each other. I mean, they haven't played to the potential that many people thought they had at the beginning of the season. They had kind of a streaky end to the season, and here they are. And Dayton's been ranked most of the second half of the season and has played some of their best basketball. Nevada has done the same, but it's very deep. We say it all the time. It's a very deep Mountain West, and the difference between the number 2 team in the Mountain West and the number 10 team in the Mountain West isn't that much.
Yeah, there was a good number of teams that were like 13-5 in the Mountain West.
Right.
There was a ton that were just above 500. That's why the Mountain West got so many bids, and even we had mentioned it that they probably could get 5 bids. We didn't think they were going to get.
I didn't think they were going to get that many. As a matter of fact, the rant that I was making is they were going to get undervalued, and they went over they went over what I thought. So
yeah, but there was a lot of mistakes made in other conferences.
To get them there.
But I don't know. Personally, here I'm going to side with Nevada just because I don't think Dayton is as good as they were ranked. They were a team. Look, they were a team that maybe they played well in the non-conference, but they didn't play well. They played well in their conference, but they weren't the best team. They were not the best team in the conference. They had 2 teams ahead of them. One's playing in the NIT, and one I think is also playing in the NIT.
Who is it?
Richmond and Loyola Chicago.
Oh, they're both in the NIT. Yeah.
Yeah, and so this is my point: is they had the better regular seasons. All 3 teams lost in the same round of the tournament. Right. It's not like Dayton went any deeper. Dayton lost on the same day as Loyola and Richmond. And yet here we are, Dayton's in the tournament somehow with Dan Duquesne.
Patrick factor. Yes.
And I get Duquesne stole a bid, but Dayton shouldn't be there is my point. I'll take Nevada. They played in the tough Mountain West Conference, and they went 13-5 in that conference. So maybe they weren't great in the Mountain West tournament, but this Nevada team, I said at the beginning of the season, they're back. Yeah. I didn't love the way they played throughout the regular season, in the thick of it. But you know what? They they proved me wrong. They got hot near the end. They've been very hot actually. Other than their loss in the conference tournament, they finished with a lot of wins. So I'll take
Well, the
Nevada.
one thing you can say about Nevada, right, is they got guys who are basically gonna you. Dayton's not going to get a rebound. That's just not going to happen. They fill up the lane and they really make it almost impossible. You're going to get one shot. You better hit it because unless it's a long rebound, they got guys under the basket that just grab that ball, hit the outlet, and away they go. So Dayton's called the Flyers, but Nevada could be called the Flyers too. So that'll be a fun matchup. And now we got another fun matchup. Number 2, Arizona, taking on Long Beach State. Everything in the world points to Arizona blowing Long Beach State out in this tournament. And I guess this is, we sound like a broker. I can't say, I'm not going to say you sound like a broker. I sound like a broker. And that is Arizona bombed out in the Pac-12 tournament. Okay. They just literally acted like they didn't show up. You can't do that against a team like Long Beach State. Yeah, honest to God, you can't. And, as good as Arizona can be, they can also be very bad. And so if I were a handicapper, which thank God for many people I'm not, I wouldn't touch this game. I just absolutely would not touch it.
Well, it's going to be hard to find value just from a handicapping standpoint.
Yeah.
From a handicapping standpoint, I'm just going to look at it quickly here. I'm searching for the game on my long list here. I got to go through multiple days, but I'm trying to get the line just so we have an idea. For some reason, I can't even find it. There it is. All right. Yeah. So Arizona's a 20.5-point favorite.
Whoa.
Definitely not a game you want to bet on just because that's a large spread. And frankly, it could fall on either side of the number. Maybe Arizona blows them out by 30. Maybe they would just win by 20 and don't cover. Maybe it's a much closer game than people think. My only concern with the third option there is that this Long Beach State, they're another one that's a bid thief. And hell of a story for them because I believe, didn't they came to a mutual agreement with their coach that they would be parting ways after the Big West tournament, and then they make the NCAA
not so fast.
tournament. So
not
it's like,
so fast.
Might need you to stick around for that Arizona loss. But
right.
It's just they're in an interesting situation. That is truly a team that didn't think they were going to be here at all and went on a magical run. I say fade him here, obviously, but yeah, from a betting standpoint, there's no way in hell. Hell, I don't even. You know me, Jim. I don't even like to touch the spreads that are over 10. You want me to hit 20? I just don't do it.
Yeah, no, it's not wise.
There's better games to bet on for sure.
All right, Purdue. We don't know who they're going to play. Doesn't matter. They'll beat them. All right.
Yeah, not this. It's not happening. I know. I got a lot of friends that are like all giddy about seeing Purdue lose in the first round again for some reason, but I keep trying to tell them it's not happening this year. Maybe the second round if they run into a good team, and I'm not saying they're going to go deep, but it's not happening in the first round. They've been on a vengeance tear this year in certain spots, and this will be that spot where we lost last year in this game. It's not happening again. Maybe they overlook the next team, but as for this one, it's not happening.
All right, we got Utah State and TCU. I really think that Utah State as an 8 is very, very, very underappreciated. They're a better team than an 8 seed. TCU is about right at 9, but both of these teams are very good. They're athletic. They get up and down the court phenomenally. They don't turn the ball over, and they are pretty disciplined teams. Now, obviously, in the conference, they had tough conferences to play in, and so there was good competition pretty much every time they went out in the court. But I think this is going to be a really close game. I would go because of my Mountain West bias now. I would go with Utah State over TCU, but it's going to be close.
Yeah, Utah State's a very interesting team. Obviously, they were the best
Mm-hmm.
team in that conference all season. They
Yeah.
actually finished at the top by themselves. They were the only, I think,
Mm-hmm.
what was it, 14? I know they had 14 wins in the conference.
Yeah,
14 and
they did.
4, I guess it would be.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that was. This is a tough one for me because TCU is another one where I don't know if they necessarily belong. They probably do
Mm-hmm.
belong there, but they could have given that spot to another one, and it wouldn't have made me as mad as some of the other decisions they made.
Right.
Yeah, this one I'm with you. It's a true toss up. We'll throw for the sake of the bracket. It'll say Utah State gets through them just because
somebody has to win.
The Mountain West. It's arguably just as good as the Big 12 this year.
Mm-hmm. It's better than the ACC.
Yeah, like the Big 12, you could make the case for, yes, it's a very strong league. It's one of the best conferences in the country, but you could also make the case that really the conference was Houston and Iowa State and Baylor, Kansas, all those other powerhouse teams weren't as good as they've been in previous years.
Right.
They simply weren't.
No, and I think that even the Big 12 fans would agree in some regards. Okay, Gonzaga against McNeese. It's a 5-12. Don't look for any upsets there. Gonzaga is going to move on. Kansas and Samford. That's a 4-13. I'm more interested in Gonzaga, Kansas, because Kansas is beat up. They are really beat up. They got 2 of their star players who aren't going to play, and they're not that deep. So maybe this is where Gonzaga, forges onto the Sweet 16 and keeps rolling.
This is my favorite part of the bracket, Jim, because I have McNeese versus Samford in the second round. I don't see Gonzaga doing. I just this Gonzaga team, they weren't impressive in the non-conference schedule. They corrected themselves in the conference, yes, but once again, they were inferior to St. Mary's during the regular season. Everybody started crowning them again once they got that last win of the regular season. Well, guess what? St. Mary's blew the doors off in the conference tournament. This Gonzaga team is just not the same anymore. And frankly, with Kansas, the 2 injuries really worry me. If they're not going to play, they are not as deep a team, and that gives Samford a big chance. And personally, I'm rooting for a McNeese Samford second round here.
It could happen. It could happen. That would be a buster of the brackets right there, I would think.
Yeah, but going by what you
next
said,
up,
if it was Gonzaga and Kansas, I would agree that Gonzaga gets through if Kansas is still banged up. Now, if Kansas is healthy, it's a different story. But as far as I'm concerned, they're not going to be back really unless like Kansas makes it to the Final Four. I saw it was closer to April date.
Yeah, they definitely said that they're not coming back for the first 2 rounds.
Yeah.
So the question begs: is Kansas good enough to get through the first 2 rounds to make it to the Sweet 16? I don't think so. But
they got put in a tough section. That's the thing, right? Like maybe if they were in
another
region, but McNeese is good. Gonzaga had a great, conference schedule. Samford dominated the look for as far as low seed mid majors go. This is a tough part of the bracket for Kansas in this situation.
Yeah. And you hit it on the head. McNeese starts throwing up threes, when they get off the bus.
So this them and Moorhead, man. I love these 3-pointer teams.
It's like just keep shooting till I think in one game this year, McNeese had 90 shots. Do you know how in a 40-minute game, do you know how hard it is to get 90 shots off?
That's
with nobody on the court,
especially with the 30-second game clock. Yeah.
Jeez.
Or shot clock, sorry. But definitely. That's like, almost 2 shots a minute. A little over.
Yeah. They're flying. Okay. South Carolina and Oregon. Now, Oregon, hibernated for the large portion of the season. and then they showed up in Vegas, and nobody could beat them. So the Ducks are in the tournament, taking on a South Carolina team, which, you know, to use your phrase, flew under the radar most of the year in the SEC.
Yeah, and this is not the women's team.
Mm-mm.
You know, maybe the women's team would probably beat both of these teams, but yeah, this is
Wouldn't put it
interesting.
past them.
This is an interesting one because Oregon was really fighting for their lives in that Pac-12. We didn't think they were going to get 4 bids, the Pac-12, and somehow they squeezed that out, which, you know, is amazing to me how they got. We had the Pac-12 as a 2-bid league.
Right.
That was being
so
generous.
They got, yeah, we were Washington State, Oregon, Arizona,
and they got
what's the other
Colorado
one?
in the
Right, the Colorado's in the
first
play-in game.
4.
Yeah, tonight. Yeah.
So I mean, it's not technically a bid, but
No,
they
it is.
still
It's
got
a
to
bid.
weigh
No.
in. You know,
Yeah,
they
no,
still
it's
got
a
to weigh
bid.
in.
It counts. It counts.
So like how they got 4 teams in there, you know, it baffles my mind.
Crazy. All right. We talked about mid-majors coming up and playing each other. It doesn't happen that often. In the first round, it did this time. We talked about it on the other side with St. Mary's and Grand Canyon. Well, this time around, it's Creighton and Akron. And I don't know what Creighton has to do to impress people enough to know that they're a pretty damn good basketball team. But they are, you know, if you know, if some of these teams are flying under the radar, these guys are subterranean. Nobody knows what they're doing. Creighton's played very good basketball. That being said, Akron, you know, was right there in the thick of things in the MAC all year long. But it should be a fun matchup. These teams play pretty much the same kind of basketball. They're good tempo teams, and they are very, you know, efficient. Is what we say when you don't make mistakes, and that's it. So this is one of those games that's going to be over in a little over 2 hours. You're not going to have to worry about parading to the free throw line and all that with these two teams. They're going to be up and down the court. But I mean, to me, I know it's a 3-14 matchup, but I think Akron can give Creighton a game. I do think Creighton's better, but I do think Akron can give them a game.
Yeah, I know someone who followed the MAC a lot this year, and
the MAC attack.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, pretty much that it's going to be the Akron's a good team. Akron is a very good team from what I hear. So I don't personally watch the MAC. I like the MAC more, but yeah, Akron definitely, you know, solid team. I don't think they're going to win. I think Creighton gets by with ease, but could they give them trouble? Akron definitely could. I think the thing with this Creighton team is, you know, they're always playing third fiddle to Marquette and UConn. But that's what kills me, and that's why I think the Big East has a point, and Rick Pitino has a point. Even though I don't know. I mean,
you don't agree with him, yeah?
I see. I agree with him. I agree with him, but for the wrong reasons. They had the net 32, so but they kept Indiana State out, who was a top 30 net team by their own metrics. So I don't know what, again, right? That's why we say they don't use logic, because they have all these guidelines, and then you don't even follow your own system. The NCAA evaluation tool, this is your own system that you've set up to evaluate teams in the country, and we're leaving Indiana State out as a top 30 team, highest ever net team to not make the bracket, by the way. Just wanted to throw that one
just
out
so
there.
You know.
But yeah, and that's what kills me is, like, I see why the Big East is pissed off. They only got 3 teams, and it's like, oh, well, you know, top heavy. Yeah, but the 3 teams at the top are both ranked inside the top 10. It's not even like they're all ranked top 25 teams. No, one is like number 2. You can make the case for number 1. Another one's a top 5 team, and then Creighton's always like in and out of the, you know, the 7 to 14 spots. So I don't understand the logic, and that's probably why, because logic isn't used by the committee when making these brackets. And yeah, I don't know. Like I understand their job is tough, but you make it harder for yourself when you make dumb decisions like let's throw, Dayton in there because we said they're a good team all season and we're going to stick to that, but our own metrics tells us Indiana State and St. John's
Stay
are
away.
very good teams, but we have to keep them out because y'all there's bid thieves. Let's chalk it up to bid thieves. Idiots. That's all I have to say.
Okay. We don't know who Texas is going to play, but they'll probably win. And
You know what? I got the play-in game. I don't know who it's going to be, but I got the winner Colorado
I
State.
I got the playing games.
No, I got them beat. Yeah, I got them beating Texas. Texas does belong there.
Oh,
How
okay.
did they get in the tournament?
I don't know. I was going to say, I was about to say that Texas will win and then lose to Tennessee. But
either way,
either way, they're not making it to the Sweet 16. Hook 'em horns. Anyway, the last one on the board, Tennessee a 2 seed, St. Peter's a 13 seed. I gotta believe Tennessee, can get through with that. I mean, there's no reason why Tennessee doesn't go to the Sweet 16. The play-in games tonight: Colorado, Boise State. That's a 10-10 team. Grambling and Montana State. I don't know what to say about that. Grambling's pretty good basketball team. We'll see what Montana State is. The aforementioned, you said it was Colorado State and Virginia. I think you're clearly where I am, and that is Virginia's not as good as, they shouldn't even be in the play-in game.
If you're asking me what I think Colorado State's going to win, and I see Colorado State beating Texas. They did beat Creighton earlier this year, so they were good in the non-conference schedule. They struggled a bit in the Mountain West, but they're still 10-8. They're a good team. We've been on this team all year, so I'm going to trust they beat Texas because even though I think Colorado State's lucky to be in there just because of the way they performed in the regular season, but at the same time, I think they deserved it a lot more than Texas deserves it.
Well, Howard and Wagner is your other game there in the 16 seeds. I like Howard. I think that they've been here, they know what to do, and that does help a lot. Wagner hasn't, so we'll see what we can see when it comes to that. So that pretty much gives us what's going on in the tournament, and we can take a look and do some retweaking down the road here because you don't have to have this in until noon on Thursday. This just in: Clemson sued the Atlantic Coast Conference in a South Carolina courtroom on Tuesday, joining Florida State in challenging the league's right to charge schools hundreds of millions of dollars in an exit fee. The complaint filed in Pickens County says the ACC's exorbitant $140 million exit penalty and the grant of rights used to bind the schools to a conference through their media rights deal should be struck down in court. Okay, so we basically now have Clemson and Florida State whining about something they signed.
So they want out of the conference. And
we get
that. At this point, like Clemson, do you even have a football team anymore? Like, who's going to take you?
I don't know. Where's Dabo when you need him, right?
Yeah, be better.
Be better and shut up. Because I guarantee you one thing. Florida State's not going to be undefeated this year. Okay? And, as you just said, Clemson's fighting to become relevant again. And right now, they're not. So they'll argue, right now, the only people winning are the lawyers who are getting billable hours. So there you go in that regard. All right. Let's see what else is going on here. We talked a little bit about it, that the Steelers and Chicago got together with a trade. Justin Fields is in Pittsburgh now with Russell Wilson. And that's a different quarterback room than Mitch Trubisky, Mason Rudolph, and Kenny Pickett, who's now in Philadelphia. So there you go. Steelers fans know that Kenny Pickett got on the wrong side of coach. A couple of coaches, not just the head coach in Pittsburgh. whose name, why am I know the guy? This is terrible. The Steelers head coach. Why am I blanking on the Steelers head coach?
Tomlin.
Thanks, Tomlin. Mike Tomlin. Tomlin. Here's the quick story on the Pickens deal. Kenny Pickett. There we go. Kenny got hurt, as we all know, and he would stand on the sidelines and mope instead of helping Mason Rudolph. He barely would stand holding the clipboard. And then in one situation where they wanted to make him, he wasn't quite ready to come back, but they wanted to designate him as the third quarterback behind Mitch Trubisky, and he didn't dress. So the players in the locker room started advocating for Russell Wilson. You know you're for the quarterback, and your team is on social media begging Russell to come to Pittsburgh. You're in trouble, okay? You don't have to do anything. Don't have to say anything. As a matter of fact, Tomlin didn't even mention to him that they were talking about bringing in, Justin Fields. It was fait accompli that Kenny Pickett was going elsewhere. He just happened to land, in Philadelphia behind Jalen Hurts, and the rest is history. We'll find out if the great experiment that Steelers made pays off for them.
It's funny because I kind of thought that situation we mentioned it when it happened.
Mm-hmm.
I brought it up on the one show that
you did.
He was at. Tomlin asked him to back up, like, just, I know you're not ready, but in case we need you,
right?
We're not going to dress Najee Harris to throw the ball if we need an emergency quarterback.
Right?
Come on, man. And he said,
"You're our
no.
emergency quarterback."
And I remember even you were like, "Oh, you don't say no to Tomlin." Well,
nope.
There you go. That's how he took that. You're gone in the offseason. So
well, he didn't even Pickett when his press conference. So they asked him about Mike, and he said, "Well, Mike didn't even tell me that they went out and was going to trade for Justin Fields." And that's just Mike saying, "You're dead to me. I really don't have any time for you, and it's a shame. Sorry, but don't come back if you."
The kid he watched at the literal practice field every day because they played there too, and just he had to ruin it.
Well, I mean, that's the problem. Sometimes you get problem children, and that's what happens when you get problem children. You get rid of them, and so Kenny Pickett is off, and we'll see what the great experiment of 2 RPO quarterbacks in Pittsburgh do. It's not what they used to run, but you make adjustments in the off season. So there you go. So that's what we can tell you. Hope that everybody had some fun with the with today's bracket situation. It was fun. And we'll come back tomorrow and get you ready for Thursday. Because when we're on Thursday, there'll be games that will either just about be over or just about start. So all kinds of fun stuff. This entire week, it's all college basketball all the time. So we'll talk some college basketball tomorrow and all the rest of the way forward. Hope you all had a great day. We had fun. Until then, be well, my friends. We will see you tomorrow.